visiting faculty. I'm sorry. He has also been a visiting faculty to Neoma Business School, Rouen, France. I am Ahmedabad. I am Ranchi. I am Rohtak. I am Kozhikode, IIFT Delhi, Shiv Nadar University, Dadri, Boston International College, Nepal, and many others. Dr. Chaturvedi has also been director, acting director, dean academic, MDP coordinator, and area chairperson. A recipient of MDI's most coveted award for excellence in teaching, Dr. Chaturvedi's publications include 10 books, 20 study materials, and more than 100 papers, cases, articles, chapters, and reviews. Dr. Chaturvedi's books include the following titles: The Art and Science of Business Communication, Skills, Concepts, Cases, and Applications. Business Communication, Skills, Concepts, and Applications. Fundamentals of Business Communication, Managing Innovation and New Product Development, Business Communication Today, Managing Global Business, A Strategic Perspective, Buying Research, New Product Development, and Welcome Back Coca-Cola. Apart from these, Dr. Chaturvedi has been the member of CII's National Committee on Higher Education for 5 years. We are indeed dignified to have such a learned and distinguished resource person with us today with this long list of his achievements and glory. I now request you, sir, to please take over the session here on. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. You have been very kind with your words, Anamika ji. I must say, I think the time is short, really short. I thought that you would keep it short. But anyway, since you've done it, but you've done it very well. I think I didn't stop you primarily because you were doing it so well. Otherwise, I usually would not allow my introduction to be so long. Thank you very much for the kind invitation. I'm grateful to Dr. Pandey, Dr. Amit, say for giving me this opportunity, inviting me to this program. But at the same time, when we started looking into this, I realized that it was a bit demanding, primarily because of the fact that when you talk about such themes, we are largely working at an esoteric level. See, when you talk about a thing like how language of instruction influences education outcome, it becomes slightly, say, difficult to compress the whole thing within 1 hour and then bring it to a level which is more practical, more, say, tactical, where some kind of a realistic view of this particular theme can be taken. So I was all through wondering, and I had been bothering Dr. Pandey so that we are able to, say, do something meaningful in this 1 hour or so, maybe about, say, 70 minutes to 75 minutes. And then we are able to get some kind of a takeaway from this session. And therefore, say, to begin with, I would like to say that whatever you will be, say, seeing here, or whatever we would be doing in this session would be also largely due to the inputs of Dr. Pandey. So I'm thankful to him, and I would like to say, to save time, go in a manner which is perhaps a presentation, but it will keep you thinking, say, at every stage, I suppose. And I hope that you will be, say, simultaneously or side by side, reflecting on how exactly we are going to do it, because it's a very interesting, if you see very much in detail, you will find that it's a very interesting topic, ladies and gentlemen. Now, okay, so what I will do is now on, from my side, I will try to minimize, say, my side of the video. And therefore, you can perhaps keep looking at my video, and I will try to concentrate more on the presentation here, because if I try to see myself on the screen, then it becomes slightly difficult, because then it occupies some space. Now, so when I asked him, because what he gave me as a theme was slightly very broad, but still I found that it was very broad. I decided to examine it at two different levels. Okay, and let's see how exactly it evolves at two different levels, ladies and gentlemen. One is the macro level. How do we look at a theme like this? How language of instruction influences education outcomes? When we consider it as something to be seen very broadly from an overview point of view. And when you are talking about a document like New Education Policy 2020, then you realize that a lot of things are more in terms of the guidelines. Okay, so we are supposed to be say translating them into action at our own levels for our own purposes. So if you examine it or look at it at a macro level, what exactly emerges? And I found that each of these, constructs, for example, if you look at, there are certain constructs in this theme. So if you look at, for example, language, instruction, or outcomes, or education, each of these need to be understood from a different perspective, from our own perspective. So at the macro level, what exactly would be the first thing crossing my mind? And I realized it was, what does education mean? Think for a while, what does education mean? And let's see this. And I think it's one of those expressions where we all feel that we know what it means, but sometimes to know it exactly is slightly challenging. For example, to me, I would go more by my perspective, and I hope it will be, in line with your way of looking at it. To me, education means transmission of knowledge in very simple words. In fact, let me tell you that my whole effort would be to keep simplifying things so that we can see the whole, theme at our own level. So the first thing that we talk about is, what does education mean? And I find, to me, it means, transmission of knowledge. Okay, or imparting of knowledge. But I would say transmission of knowledge, and much broader would be imparting of knowledge. Now let's not get into the details of, transmission and knowledge, because we all know that it's a process of communication. It's a process where the faculty is there, the students are there, subject knowledge is there, and a medium is there, and that process of transmission is taking place. Maybe it's one way, maybe it's just two way. Okay. What exactly are the outcomes expected? When we talk about, education outcomes, what exactly is expected, after the whole process of education is complete? Now, there can be many outcomes. Understanding of the subject knowledge, or to help students or the recipients develop a perspective, a particular perspective about a subject. Understanding means to understand as desired or intended by the faculty. But the perspective would mean that you are only say, facilitating them to develop their own viewpoint. And it could be a perspective about a subject knowledge or beyond that. It could be a sort of transformation. For example, the way you start looking at life from a different level to another level, from, say, primary school level to secondary school level to college level to UG level or to PG level, and then higher levels. How exactly the transformation as far as an individual's thinking is concerned. Therefore, the next outcome could be a kind of a difference in thinking, how, say, we start thinking differently. Let me tell you that to me, when I talk about MBA education, there's only one purpose of entire process of 2 years of MBA education, and it is to make them think differently. A kind of a transformation, how exactly they would be looking at the whole world. 2 years before, how exactly I used to look at everything, and then now how exactly I would, for that matter, even life, broadly, largely. Therefore, we can say that it could be a transformation where a difference in thinking takes place. And then you become ready for the next level. Especially, for example, when I'm talking about a school education, the entire purpose of a school education would be to prepare you for the higher education. The entire purpose of the higher education would be to prepare you for, say, the next level, for example, job. And if you look at, say, all the levels of education, it is actually to prepare you for the life. Your professional life, your social life, your personal life. Hello? So you can see that, therefore, we insist, we emphasize that the more you are educated, the better prepared you are for, say, your life, your personal life, your social life, your, say, professional life. And that's the reason why, say, you start, say, dealing with your word, the word around you or the environment around you differently at each level. You can see that the one person who is a professional working in, say, in industry would be, the way the person behaves would be very different from the person who is in college, is still doing post-graduation. Would be the behavior of that particular student would be different from the student who is still doing undergraduate program. And the behavior of a student doing undergraduate program would still be different from the behavior of those who are in school. And in fact, sometimes if you have a culture shock, then let me tell you that with due respect to the levels education, I would say that they have not been able to prepare you for the next level. If you get a kind of a shock in college, then perhaps your school education has not been able to prepare you for a school, say, college education, college level. And if the college level is, undergraduate level is not able to prepare you for the PG level, then only you will have a shock. And especially if you get a shock, culture shock, when you enter the world of work, real life situations in life, then that means your college education, your UG, PG put together, they've not been able to prepare you for the next level. So when you talk about the outcomes expected, there is so much of an expectation from education. Okay. So the whole game would revolve around these expectations. Okay. Now let's see, what does language do? There's a third construct in the topic. How does language of instruction influence, or how language of instruction influences education outcomes? Language actually acts like a medium. When you talk about different languages, and if there is a gap between the language being used by the faculty and the common language understood by the students, you can understand there's a communication breakdown. There's no connect. So how exactly the transmission can take place? So language is the conduit. It is something that connects the faculty with the students and helps transmit, say, the knowledge or the message. Okay. And then what is meant by instruction? It's an American term. We all use it now. It's an American term being used for teaching. In simple terms, as teaching. So if you want to keep it simple, then I think we can say that it is a question of teaching. Okay, so what we are talking about is broadly that how exactly the medium of instruction or the language that you use for teaching, say, makes a difference to, say, the process of transmission of knowledge and the goals thereby, the purpose thereby. So we can put all those four constructs together. And that's the reason why we find that this kind of, say, topic has come about. How language of instruction influences education outcomes. Okay, now this was the first level, and that is a macro level. But then the question is, how do we make all this actionable? So there is, say, a set of outcomes expected. There is, say, a knowledge to be, say, transmitted. There is a medium given. And there is a process also given, the whole process. There's a subject matter given. How do we make this actionable, all this put together? And the answer is by taking it to the micro level. Now, ladies and gentlemen, when we take it to the micro level, then I would like to look at the topic slightly differently. I would view it differently. And to me, say, the topic would not only start looking more practical, but the issues would also become more familiar. And thereby we would be able to consider, say, the totality of the classroom situation, the reality of the classroom situation. And that's why I'm trying to examine the whole thing at the, or I'm trying to bring the whole thing to the micro level. Okay, and thus my topic would look something like this. I said that we would be able to consider very many factors. And one very important factor to begin with would be the cultural background. Not only the language factor, but also the cultural factor. Because this is the basic issue that we would find facing us when we are in a very heterogeneous group of students. When we are trying to communicate with a mixed group of students from varied language and cultural backgrounds, teaching multilingual, multicultural groups of students. Now, here we will find that perhaps we are trying to touch upon only the two aspects of the whole, say, situation: language and culture. But you'll be surprised when I start unfolding, and when you also start reflecting, you'll be surprised at how many factors can be there and how much difference they can make to the total effectiveness of the process, the entire process, the teaching process, and to the expected outcomes. So if you want to take care of these things, then perhaps you will have to take care of all of them also. Okay. Let me also say, when we go further down, that you will find that there would be, say, differences in the approaches from one context to another context. Therefore, I would like to take it to a further level down and then make it straight forward and simple by saying that we would like to consider factors determining effectiveness of classroom communication. Because please appreciate that each course, each class, each session would have its own, say, expected outcomes, objectives, goals. Each faculty, as per the topic, would, and as per the composition of the group, the faculty is going to say addressing, is going to determine the language. So you can understand, there will be a topic, there will be a language, there is an expected outcome of the session. So let me tell you, it's not a question of 90 minutes class or 1 hour class or 50 minutes class or 40 minutes class or half an hour class. Ladies and gentlemen, for whatever time you are, say, communicating with the students or you are taking a class, there must be, for every session, there must be an outcome, say, predefined. And I want to achieve so much in this class, irrespective of the time duration. For example, when you make research presentations, and when you expect the students to make the project report presentations, you give them just about 10 minutes or 15 minutes, or you get about 10 minutes or 15 minutes. And therefore, you have to conclude everything within that time. And that is the outcome expected. So, and then you will find that all these factors would be coming into play during that time in that, say, classroom situation. And you have to deliver that topic. You have to achieve that outcome. Okay. Now the first thing, and the factors which I'm going to list down are not in any particular order. You can give them an order if you wish, but I've not tried to give them any order because it may suit our requirements. And the first thing is nationality. First thing is nationality, ladies and gentlemen, because I've had situations where I've had students from, say, many different countries sitting in my class. They can be national, they can be international. Of course, we all know, in Indian context, when we have, say, national students, we are not much concerned. We all believe that, say, either they all would be able to understand English or they would have a working knowledge of English. And therefore, we can use one medium that is, or language that is English. Or sometimes if we even use Hindi, they will be able to appreciate, they will understand. Okay. But with international students, they may all understand. But the problem would be that you will not be able to know whether they are understanding or not, because my experience here and abroad is that they are primarily not giving you any feedback, or they are not responding or not speaking much because they are hesitant, because they lack confidence. They believe that they don't have a good knowledge of English, and therefore they are not able to express themselves well. So what they do is that they try to keep quiet. And then they have no expressions on their faces. In India, when we have all national students, you can at least, and you can't even ask international students whether you're understanding or not, because that might be taken as an insult, because it's very embarrassing. We all assume that they're understanding. But here, in case of our Indian students or national students, they may come from different parts of the country. And we can even ask, is it clear? Are you able to understand? Should I repeat? All those things happen. So even the nationality can make a difference. And I see, and it is possible, because there are institutions where there is a large percentage of international students sitting in classes. Even the leading business schools have that situation. I'm not sure in your case you've had this situation or not, but I hope that gradually all schools, even like SMS, I think becoming more global and more of international students coming on board, the situation might arise. What exactly is the mode is the second factor. What is the mode of teaching? Is it face-to-face or online? Online is a very typical kind of a situation. For example, you may not be able to see everyone on the screen. It's a technology-driven process, highly technology-based. In face-to-face, you can have one look at the class and you can make out. Here you are more busy transmitting. Let me tell you that since I have started using online, I have always been concerned about the technology. And I always hope that the technology will not fail us. Sometimes there is a connectivity issue. Sometimes there is, say, a problem of the network. And we are concerned. So we have a big difference between face-to-face situation and online situation. Maybe the rules of the game would be different for two modes. Okay. And then you have more time in face-to-face to keep checking, because a lot of feedback is non-verbal. So you can always check, and then you can always say, help them understand more. But online, say, you don't have that kind of much of non-verbal feedback. What exactly is the system? Whether you're following the trimester system or semester system. Trimester system is a high-speed system. Semester system is a little more, say, relaxed. Trimester system, say, you may be getting just about 30 hours to complete a course. If it's a 3-credit course according to one particular, say, model. In semester system, you may be getting more than 40 hours to complete a course. Maybe 44, 45, 46 up to. So you can imagine that you have more time. So you can get much into details. And therefore, even if I want to use, say, multi-languages, in the sense I want to explain something in English, then I also want to explain something in Hindi, the same thing. I may not have much time in trimester system because it's a high-paced system, but I may be able to do it in semester system. I may take more, I may repeat the topics also. Then it depends on the level. Whether you are, say, addressing UG students or PG students or executives, or whether you are, say, taking a class for PhD students as far as MPhil courses are concerned. The level of maturity differs. For executives, you can safely assume that all of them would be very comfortable as far as English language is concerned. PG is still, majority would be comfortable with English language. But in UG, you cannot say. You have to really find out what percentage of the students would really be comfortable. And let me tell you that, of course, even though as a thumb rule, you will find that 20% of the students in any class or group, say, would be very comfortable with a particular language, English, say for example, and about 20% would not at all be comfortable with English. And the rest of the 60% in between would be, say, okay with either you use English or you use Hindi. Sometimes it is very surprising, but I'm talking about UG. It doesn't happen there much, but in PG, I'm surprised that, those who are very comfortable with English language, if you try to use more of Hindi in class, they might not like it because they say that, no, the medium is English. You please stick to English. In fact, in case of international students, they go and complain to the dean also that, why the faculties, even if you use a few words in Hindi or any other language. So these percentages might vary from level to level. Therefore, you have to be deciding, keeping in mind the composition of the group and at what level you are doing a course, say what should be language largely used. Okay. And I'm sure that language is also a factor or part of culture, the cultural background. At the executive level, my experience is that they may come from any cultural background, but because of their, say, experience, they are able to manage English language. In case of PG, also to large extent, they are able to manage. But in UG, say the cultural background really makes a lot of difference as far as their, say, language comfort level is concerned. So you have to be very extra careful using English much or not using Hindi at all when you are talking to a, communicating with a mixed group of students. Those are my experiences. Plus there are, these are very idiosyncratic factors also, ladies and gentlemen. There are faculty members who are very good at expressing themselves in Hindi or their own mother tongue. So they have a tendency to keep using a lot of Hindi or their mother tongue, which goes very well with UG students, but may not go, as I said, very well with PG or executive students. PG, of course, is a different kind of a level altogether. It's more of a one-on-one personalized because the student size or the group size is very small. By the way, I'll try to finish it quickly, and then we will have the question answers at the end. So please bear with me. Therefore, I'm not asking for questions in between. I hope it'll be all right. What exactly is the course? Let me tell you that the language would also make a difference As far as the course is concerned, whether you're teaching marketing, finance, HR, OM, OB, or BC. Oh, I'm sorry. I think I've repeated OM. Okay. It'll make a difference because they may vary from very soft courses to very hard courses, like finances or operations is a very hard course. So you may require a lot of quantitative, say, orientation there. And that's why I'm saying what kind of pre-preparation you have gone by. Maybe that you have done some kind of a bridge course. Therefore, we need to ask what exactly is the nature, whether it is a quantitative course or qualitative course. So is it more quantitatively oriented or qualitatively oriented? HR, OB, business communication, they are, say, even marketing to some extent can be both quantitative and qualitative, but not much quantitative. But then operations management and finance could be highly quantitative. So we have to also keep in mind this, that what is the scope of language and what would make the students appreciate the course or the content better. In what language? Now, in marketing, if you want to give an example, then maybe that marketing and any example in marketing would be perhaps equally, say, well understood, or whether English or Hindi or any other regional language if people are talking about in regional language. But then there can be certain terms in marketing like concepts and definitions which perhaps are difficult to explain. You have to know them in English. If the basic medium of instruction is English, then you have to know them in English basically, primarily. And then what exactly is the kind of the course? Whether it's core course or elective course. Again, it makes all the difference. In core, you are more, say, focused on giving the students more of principles, concepts, do's and don'ts, etc., etc. In electives, you want them to think more. You're more interested in doing cases with them, exercises with them, say, doing games with them or simulations with them, so that you can make them think. It's more about decision making. In core courses, it is more about knowledge. But in electives, it is more about decision making. Therefore, you have to keep, say, quizzing their minds. And that's why we talk about a case-based approach. Then the other factor which could perhaps make a difference is the class size, larger classes or small classes. If you have a smaller class like 40, 60, 80, I would say beyond 60, it starts becoming a little big. 120, 150 would be on the higher side. But then let me share with you that I've been to so many IIMs, and the tendency of the IIMs is to keep increasing their intake. And therefore, even in the electives, I found there that they have large class sizes. Now, the electives which I earlier used to do with 30 students, 40 students, I found, so to me, for an elective, 40 is the best size. 60 is still to some extent manageable, but I don't find it very comfortable. But then they have sometimes a group of 80 students taking an elective. So they have two sections. If it goes beyond 80, like 120, then they will have two sections of 60-60. In one case of a course, I found 150 students were there subscribing to that elective, and therefore they had to split them into two sections, 75-75, or one was 70, someone 80. In fact, when I went to Noma school to teach brand marketing, then I found that there were 90 students. Oh, very interestingly, their policy was that not more than 40 students say in a class. So they made three sections, 40, 40, and 10. So I asked them, I said, why 10? You could split them into 30, 30, 30. Bole, no, we go by our policy. So we will go up to 40, then up to 40, then the remaining in third section. So you can imagine. So it makes a lot of difference. So what would language do? The larger the class, you will try to use whatever language you think you can best use to, say, do the job. You want to do the job effectively. With a smaller group, you can perhaps have the flexibility of using different languages. Sometimes English, sometimes Hindi. So all these things can be there. What exactly is the group background? Engineering, commerce, arts, economics, science. That will also make a difference. For engineers, the language may not make much of a difference, but then for arts, commerce students, I think it does. Economics has its own language as science. So you can see that. So we have to consider this also. Then, of course, comes the medium. Whether I've been talking about English, Hindi, or mixed. And there are so many, now there are so many, you have seen so many factors which perhaps would help you decide whether you should be using only one of them or mixed approach. And if mixed approach, then how much of one and how much of another? How much of English, how much of Hindi? What percentage? Maybe I would not mind using about 5 to 10% of Hindi in my classes, wherever I've been to, except for abroad. But then I think I would not mind. Then it also depends on, ladies and gentlemen, the pedagogy. The language would be affected by the pedagogy, influenced by the pedagogy, because see, and the outcomes would depend on that, because am I using only the lecture method or I'm using the cases? Now, if I'm using the cases, then it's perhaps more open. The lecture is perhaps more set. Videos come in their own languages, games, simulations. The assignments are supposed to be done in English language if the medium is English, medium of instruction is English. Projects are to be done in English language. The presentations are to be done in English language. So they would automatically determine, they would decide what exactly is the language that we are going to use. Lecture gives you flexibility. Cases would largely be in English, but then the discussion can, depending on the facility of the language as far as the groups are concerned, it can be both ways. But we insist at the electives level, at the MBA level, at the executive level, we insist that no, you should stick to English. And my experience is that the seating arrangement would also be, say, telling you, but primarily, if it is a regular type, classroom type, Then when you want to reach the backbenchers, let me tell you that, as we all know, that those who are laid back, those who are reluctant, those who are hesitant, those who don't want to participate much, those who don't want to be exposed, they try to sit at the back. Usually everywhere. So maybe for them, you will need to be able to reach to them, you will need to change. And it is for effectiveness also, sometimes you need to change, you need to address them in a different language so that they respond. Maybe if I believe that those who are not comfortable in English try to sit at the back, and this is what my experience is largely, not in, of course, leading business schools like I am and others, but then otherwise. So I try to read them, say, by changing the tone or the language. So instead of saying, why don't you answer, I would say that, aap bataiye. I might sometimes even say that, kya baat hai, aap kuch keh nahi rahe, bol nahi rahe. Aapne abhi tak kuch kaha nahi. Aap bataiye. This much everybody understands, except for international students. So you may need to change the tone, you may need to change the language, primarily to be able to, say, bring them out, make them participate, contribute. In theater type, it is very good because everybody is right there and exposed. And then what are the teaching aids that you are using? Is it a board? You can't use Hindi because it's sometimes very difficult to, one or two words here and there you can write in Hindi or any other language, but then largely you're using English. And there are certain words which are very difficult to write in Hindi also. And if we've been writing English, then I think it is very difficult to ourselves to write, say, in Hindi frequently or much. PPTs are in our language, English, in language of instruction. Now, column mic, why do I say? Because without column mic, if it's a larger group, then you have to shout. When you have to shout, you cannot bring much variation in your language. That's what my experience is. You would like to stick to what you have been doing. You don't want to change anything because you are more focused on volume, not content. In the sense, playing with the content. You can't improvise much because it takes a lot of effort. And if you use handouts in classes, then I think the handouts are prepared in English. If the medium instruction is English, therefore you have to keep drawing their attention. If there are exercises, caselets, distributed in class, so they're all in English. So you have to. So this is one way of bringing them up to the level of English you want them to use or appreciate in a class. All textbooks would be in English. And sometimes I insist for certain courses, especially core courses, like business communication, I insist sometimes for the purpose of cases and exhibits, I insist that you bring the textbook to the classes and I try to draw their attention. Familiarity. It's a comfort level with the language, actually. It's a comfort level, interestingly. So what happens is that you try to make them familiar with that. Your outcomes would also be determined by the evaluation scheme that you use. Is it traditional? once a year, once a semester, or it's continuous. If it is continuous, then you can build in a lot of in-class assignments, exercises, activities, which could be, for example, which could be, for example, cases, case analysis writing, analysis presentation, group presentations. It can all be in English. You're trying to mold them to that level of appreciation in a particular medium. Similarly, what is exam type? Closed book, open book, Viva. They will be forced to write in English depending on the type of exam, because the answers are expected only in that particular medium of instruction. But Viva can be in different languages. And then, very interestingly, the dress makes all the difference to the environment of the classroom. Whether we have a system of formal dressing, or we have a system of semi-formal dressing, or there is no system, it is only casual dressing, or there's a uniform system. Some schools insist on uniform, especially for undergraduate students, because of the discipline issue. You're trying to channelize their, say, behavior, and you're trying to mold their thinking. In MBA, especially in second year, we insist on formal dressing. First year, semi-formal dressing. Maybe once a week over the weekend, like Friday or something, we can say that, all right, one day off and you can have casual dressing. But it's a different kind of a discipline. It's a different kind of a system where you sit in a particular kind of dressing, all of them uniformly, and then you can use that particular formal language. English, because of the medium of instruction, becomes more of a formal language. A balanced mix of English and Hindi becomes, say, semi-formal. But then if there is no balance between English and Hindi or different languages, then it becomes casual. Uniform becomes, of course, formal, because then you can always, say, treat them differently, even language-wise. You can say that the whole thing needs to be more disciplined. Now, I think it's about 3:30, and technically my time is over exactly now. But we can still have some questions, because I said that we would like to have some questions. And therefore, we can say, we can always go by your questions, and I'll try to answer them to the best of my ability. Whatever your questions could be, whatever your observations, comments, anything that you would like to say. We have about 5 to 10 minutes, and then I think, therefore, I thought that I would be able to stop by 3:30. And I know that it has been a different kind of a session, but then I wanted to share with you the totality of, say, what we are talking about. It's not just the language. It is not just the cultural background. When it comes to the education outcomes, it's a whole lot of things. And I think all these things would perhaps help you decide what kind of language we should be using as far as, say, transmission of knowledge is concerned at different levels. Please feel free. Any questions, any observations, any comments? You're most welcome.
Any questions?
If you keep absolutely quiet, then I might get a feeling that perhaps
Good afternoon, sir. This is Karnantaka.
went tangent.
Am I audible, sir?
Yeah, you are audible, please.
Yes. This is Karnantaka, sir. Very good afternoon to you, sir.
Yes.
Sir, you have elaborated so elucidatingly. But my question was like, means in terms of communication, if we talk about expectation in terms of communication within the class, and if we relate these things to the program outcomes, even in program outcomes, it has been mentioned communication skills. So how we usually map that communication skill with the curriculum so that we can measure that outcome in terms of communication.
Gentlemen, if you don't mind, I suppose you are asking a question which is more related to NEC.
Yes, because I'm trying to learn that thing. That's why I wanted to correlate with that particular outcome with this communication.
I am not sure because Dr. Pandey didn't share with me that this FDP is being done to prepare all of you for NEC. I'm not sure because it's a very specific question. And I think how exactly we map communication skills to be used, I think it all depends on what are you required to fill up in that particular form. I think I'm sorry, but please excuse me, but gentlemen, I think, or maybe that I'm not able to get the idea of the question.
Sir, like in terms of expectation, we should create certain benchmark, and how that benchmark can be created within the classroom settings so that we can gauge that communication is going appropriately, even from our end also, from teachers' end.
I suppose I mentioned that each session is supposed to be having its own outcome pre-decided. Each session, not only each topic, but each session. And irrespective of the time that you have, even if you are holding a class for about an hour or about 40 minutes or 45 minutes, 50 minutes or 90 minutes, I don't know what exactly is the class duration in your case. So it depends. So what exactly you should be? Communication skills of who? The faculty or the students?
Means I'm talking about benchmarking for students.
Now, then in that case, every class does not try to benchmark the communication skills of students. Therefore, I said the communication skills of students are supposed to be determined before the classes begin, before your interaction with the students begin. And therefore, I also talked about the bridge course. I said that is there a bridge course in your scheme? Okay. Because if you have a bridge course, then if as a prior preparation, then I think it helps you. So I think
orientation program.
Sorry, yeah, we have the orientation program, you're right.
Yeah.
We have the orientation program, you're very right. And then what we do is that there we benchmark. In fact, there are, say, British Council tests also available, labs also available. We introduce courses accordingly. All that benchmarking is done, but it is, say, outside and before the classes begin, for the courses. I don't know if I'm able to answer your question, but I think that's what we do.
Yes, thank you so much.
Okay.
Any more questions?
Yes, please. Well, what exactly you tell me? Why I'm still not able to get. Why did you ask this question? I'm trying to understand, because that would mean the purpose of this thing. It would tell me.
Basically, problem with us, like in eastern part of UP, the student usually comes from diverse background, and
Sure.
to address them at the same platform becomes very much difficult for us. This is a very daunting task for us. If you talk about communications, people are they are exposed to this particular language at the standard of 10th, and many of them have studied even in Hindi medium schools. So in the same classroom, one particular student is very much proficient. On the other side, other students are studying the same language.
Mhm.
So we have to make a balance between them. So at the beginning of it, if we are able to benchmark things, then we can segregate the class and communicate efficiently. We'll handle the entire class. So my problem is in terms of communication skill, how we can segregate the entire class so that we can address at the same level.
See, therefore, I said that before the courses begin during the orientation program, you do a kind of a benchmarking check. And let me tell you what my suggestion has always been, that you create separate sections of these students and you give them specialized courses in English language. You do, or otherwise at the undergraduate level especially, what you do is that you have parallel courses, or you build in your program. From next year, we are going to have, say, schemes in university system where you will have 4-year undergraduate program. But my suggestion to all of you would be that what you could do is that then in your undergraduate programs, you say provide for some English language courses from one term to another term, and you do them at least, say, in first year, and you try to do them separately, so that you are able to bring these students at par with them. But till then, either you create different sections of these students, or you have to bear with them, because it's because, and when you are, please understand, when you are giving them admission, this is what you need to keep in mind.
Yes, sir.
I know this situation is faced by other, say in Delhi NCR also, this situation is faced by other institutions here, but the percentage may not be so high. So you have to see what is the percentage. And then maybe you create a separate section. You give them a different kind of, say, a separate, say, set of courses or labs. There are labs available, language labs available, with the help of which you can improve their, say, language proficiency. And I'm sure you must be having it.
Yeah, it is this.
There are English language labs. You can do that. So I think then only maybe then, say, first year you create sections separately. Second year onwards, you will be able to merge them. Do that.
Yes. Thank you, sir. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Sir, there is one more question.
Yes.
Like this new national education policy is emphasizing on multilingualism, and they want to bring all other languages at par with English as far as the medium of instructions are concerned. So they promote, they are encouraging institutions to teach in all different languages, even the regional languages. So as a business school, primarily we are a business school. We do teach courses in computer application and mass communication also. So up till now, we have been primarily teaching in English. How to cope up with this new challenge of multilingualism?
I know that. I've read that there are institutions in UP which are offering even engineering courses in Hindi. There are, say, institutions down south which are offering courses in medical sciences and engineering, in management, in regional languages. True. For that, if you want to go by that policy and you want to start offering your courses in Hindi language because you belong to UP, but then it's a different kind of a planning. It's a different kind of preparation. You can't do it overnight. You will have to prepare everything from that point of view. You will have to have the entire process, say, adapted to a different medium altogether. It is not just that, it is not that you will keep using, please understand, it is not that you will just keep using, say, Hindi in classroom as far as communication is concerned, speaking is concerned, you will have to use everything in Hindi then. So you will have to have a different set of faculty also who would be able to do it, especially for you, for those courses, those programs. It's not that the same faculty, if the same faculty can do it, I don't mind, but then how will you get the textbooks in Hindi for that matter? So you'll have to have those textbooks, you'll have to have those faculty who would be able to offer, deliver those courses and classes as far as Hindi medium is concerned. So it's not possible overnight. But there are some who are trying to do it, but they might have prepared for it, or they think that they can do it. But I think that's, to my mind, the real spirit of the policy is not that you just switch over to your medium of instruction from English to Hindi. That would not be serving the purpose. You should go to a typical Hindi medium school and find out what exactly they mean. Except for English, they would be teaching everything in Hindi. And even English also in Hindi. So please appreciate this. The degree of difficulty is very high. And it is still not, according to me, a compulsion on every institution to do it. You may choose to. I'm sure that they would be giving you more time if you want to. Even if you say that I want to do it, you have some lead time, because you can't prepare yourself and start doing it tomorrow. If you're planning, good enough. Is it clear? Is it okay?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, please appreciate that. It's a very tough proposition. For 20, say 5+ years, you have been, Dr. Pandey, in a different kind of a mode. And you have to change it. And if you want to change it suddenly, then it will take some time. Maybe that you'll have to create a parallel system.
Right, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Anything else? I think.
Yes, sir. I think you have another meeting in a few minutes, so we'll stop now here. And
Yeah, I'm sorry. We will have to stop it here because my time is getting over. I have to get into another meeting right after.
give us just one more minute. And thank you very much. I am now handing over it to Anamika Patel ma'am for the proceeding.
Yes, sir. Okay.
We'll
Thank you,
take
sir.
just 2 minutes.
Yes, thank
What
you
do
so
you,
much,
ma'am?
sir. Yeah, it was an outstanding session by you, and we all know that communication is the essence of life. And thank you so much, sir, that your session has so wonderfully reinstated that fact to all of us. Now, without further ado, I would humbly call upon Dr. Pallavi Pathak ma'am, Associate Professor, SMS Varanasi, to propose vote of thanks. Over to you, ma'am.
Greetings to all. Sir, I'll just take 2 minutes. What an amazingly fulfilling and enriching session this has been. I'm still soaking in the magical spell of words. And look at my dilemma. I've been assigned a Herculean task to say something in honor of a person, a connoisseur who has mastered the art and science of communication. I'm actually falling short of appropriate words. At the same time, I feel privileged to convey my heartfelt thanks towards today's resource person, Professor Mukesh Chaturvedi, on behalf of entire SMS family. Firstly, for humbly acceding to our request to take a session in this FDP, and for dealing an important topic of language of instruction in such an effective and lucid manner, sir. Sir, ours being in a management institute, a discipline in which almost all the available literature is in English language, whereas our students primarily hail from Hindi-speaking states. There are few students in our college who do not know a single word of Hindi. So we have to be especially mindful regarding the selection of medium of instruction, and the language undoubtedly plays an important role. Maybe it is not so, the problem is not so in quantitative subjects, but in other subjects the problem persists. So we are especially thankful to you for providing a new perspective to our understanding and reflection. We could relate to each and every word. And I wanted to sum up the takeaways, but I'm skipping it. And I'm sure all the participants of FDP have benefited immensely today. And we all would certainly be looking forward to listening to you again, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
My pleasure entirely. My pleasure entirely. Thank you so much for such kind words.
Back to you, Anamika.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for the humblest and all-inclusive vote of thanks. And thank you again, sir, for gracing the occasion and enriching all of us with your beautiful, wonderful deliberation. And I would like to thank Dr. Amitabh Pandey, sir, also FDP convener, for organizing this wonderful program on NEP 2020. And I also thank everyone for patient listening. And it was a great delight to coordinate this session. We would see you tomorrow for next technical session starting from 11 a.m. Till then, goodbye, stay safe and stay blessed. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good day, sir.